camera! I'm picking it up. Sorry about that.
Hi my lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. I don't know how to open this video other than just saying I've had this video idea in my head for so long, like maybe since 2023, because let me just tell you, one of my earliest childhood memories was Baby Einstein. According to my mom, because believe it or not, I was a baby, guys. I wasn't like particularly obsessed with Baby Einstein in a way, like there were other shows I liked way more, but I think why it specifically stuck with me anyway is because of how calming those videos were. I think especially because I had a semi-traumatic childhood, it just reminds me of a time where things were peaceful, I didn't have any worries, I was simply a baby. And I think that's why with nostalgia, so many people in their early 20s like me are like very drawn to it. And that's why in 2023, when I was first getting into making video essays and learning like the whole process of making one, Baby Einstein immediately popped into my head. But when I make my video essays, I love to have a central point. That's partially why my next video is going to be PBS Kids, because right now is the perfect time to talk about that, for example. But I looked up Baby Einstein because I was like, oh, like what could I talk about? What else? Is there something I don't know about Baby Einstein? And what I didn't realize, however, was there used to be a lot of controversy surrounding Baby Einstein as a brand in the early 2000s. So I thought it would be very interesting to unpack and take a look at in present day, as well as do a general deep dive and look at the history and stuff. Before we dive in, I just want to note that I had to use a lot of like interviews, and specifically I want to highlight this TED Talk for my sources of like piecing together the history and the timeline, especially the early history of Baby Einstein. I don't normally do that. I normally will like look at articles and stuff. My sources are always linked in the description, but I did want to note it because I was like, oh, like what if it sounds like I'm taking too much from it? But it's like they're literally, that was where I was finding the history, because watching these interviews and like Julie talk about the thing that she built was very helpful for making this video. But yeah, those will be linked in my description if you're interested in watching like her TED Talk yourself. I would really recommend it. I found it to be really interesting. But without further ado, let's dive in. The story of Baby Einstein starts with a woman named Julie Clark, and when I first started looking into this topic, I wanted to really get to know who Julie was as a person, and many sources stated that Julie was simply a stay-at-home mom. But I'm not sure why, because Julie was first an English teacher to high school students after getting her degree at Michigan State University, and I believe that her major was English. In fact, at the time when Julie went to college, she was the first person in her family to go to college. So that was a goal she had from a very young age, because she credits her parents for helping her become a very goal-oriented type of person, which is definitely something that played a huge role in the development process of Baby Einstein later down the line. Obviously, being a mother is a huge part of Julie's identity too, but it was only when she had her first daughter that she took on that stay-at-home mom role. So I thought it'd be important to highlight, since much of this video will obviously be focused on her motherhood, because it went hand in hand with the conception of Baby Einstein. And I think partially why Julie wanted to be a stay-at-home parent was because for the first 7 years of her life, her mom was, and she spoke to Jeremy of Inspired Insider about it, and it seemed like it was something she really appreciated from her childhood and wanted for her own daughter. Since unlike her parents in the 70s where money was tight, I think she had maybe more of the luxury to be able to take a step back from work to spend those formative years with her children.
Well, unfortunately, my mom was not able to be a stay-at-home mom because she had to work. We didn't have a whole lot of money. My dad was an electrician. My mom did stay home with me actually for the first 7 years of life, which was wonderful. And then she went back to work full time. And so, you know, at that age, it was funny. You know, I mean, this was to date myself in the early 70s, and it just seemed so unsafe to kind of leave a child, let a child come home from school and let herself in the house, that whole latchkey kid thing.
Right.
So yeah, so my mom was home with me when she could be, and then did go back to work.
So in October of 1994, Julie would have her first daughter named Aspen, who actually appeared on the Baby Einstein tapes at a certain point, but was also the inspiration for Baby Einstein as a whole. After having her daughter Aspen, Julie became really interested and fascinated by the current research pertaining to newborns and their ability to learn. In an interview from 1997 with CNN, she points out how the first 3 years of life are incredibly important for a child. Or something interesting that CNN points out in this same interview is that listening to music at a young age was thought to improve your math skills later in life, which was something I hadn't even heard of. But more importantly, at least in my opinion, what Julie notes in her TED Talk as kind of like the inspiration for Baby Einstein outside of like her child is Barney. She says early on she decided that she could not listen to Barney.
Let me tell you about Baby Einstein. For those of you who don't know, you saw a little piece of it. That was from Baby Van Gogh, which is my favorite video of the videos that I made. And my idea as a stay-home mom was really spurred by this feeling that I had that I could not listen to Barney.
Naturally though, due to her daughter's curiosity when it came to television and, learning the world around her, Julie began to search out ways to not only teach her daughter these things, but to stimulate those important parts of the brain. So, since she knew what kinds of things her daughter liked to look at from spending time with her, and ultimately knew what she as a parent liked to hear or wanted her daughter to be exposed to, that's what led to the creation of the first Baby Einstein video, which would go on to be known as Baby Einstein Language Nursery. Language Nursery was filmed in her basement with the help of video equipment her husband was able to borrow, but what Julie didn't know was this would go on to be huge. $1 million company. But again, at this time, she was simply recording things she knew her daughter enjoyed in the basement. And then once she got all of her shots, she set the video to classical music, which she hired a friend of hers to compose, produce. Even the logo for Baby Einstein has humble beginnings. Julie actually drew the logo at her kitchen table with her daughter's crayons. So not only was her daughter's mind and what she gravitated to the muse for the videos, but even the logo. And I always really appreciated or liked the logo because of how simplistic and colorful it was, but also I just feel like it, captures that essence of childhood innocence and creativity. I don't know if that's even making sense, but I like the logo, okay? I'm highlighting it. Anyway, Julie and her husband then invested roughly $15,000 of their own savings to not only compose the music, I imagine, as well, but to produce the initial VHS cassettes. The purpose of this was because on a whim, Julie decided to travel from Georgia to New York for a trade show, aka the International Toy Fair. Julie had never been to a trade show. She knew so little, in fact, that she didn't even have her own booth or anything. She just went with a VHS tape in her hand and a dream. The goal here was getting Baby Einstein the exposure it needed to flourish. Because what Julie did know was there would be retailers at this trade show looking for new, unique, innovative products for the children's market. But more specifically, she had the company The Right Start in mind. I could not find much information on this company, but it was a store that Julie was very familiar with, I believe from shopping there for her own kids. And so it became her mission of sorts to find somebody, anybody, with a The Right Start name tag once she was at the convention. And long story short, she stumbled upon a lady at the trade show who was affiliated with that company. And in hindsight, she feels like she was a bit crazy because she was so excited to finally find somebody. And she was obviously so enthusiastic about this product that she thought she might have scared that lady away. But ultimately, she was able to get the VHS into her hands. And after taking the weekend to watch the tape with an actual baby, the lady decided that, we want to try this in our stores. There's nothing like it on the market. As I said before, that initial VHS would be known as Baby Einstein Language Nursery, and this is because this marked the beginning for a whole series worth of videos. And because the brand was obviously known as Baby Einstein, it was given that name so it wouldn't get confused. From 1996 to 2000, thanks to The Right Start, selling Baby Einstein amongst their, I believe it was 34 locations. If that's wrong, I apologize. There was very minimal information on these stores, or this store. But from that exposure and simply word of mouth, Baby Einstein began to establish an audience among parents, reaching $1 million in revenue by 1998. 2 years into her Baby Einstein journey was when Disney first came into the picture. Specifically, it was Disney Publishing who reached out to Julie because they were hoping to work together on a book line for Baby Einstein, which she gladly accepted. And of course, this only helped further grow her business. Although the company was still self-sufficient by this point, it was no longer just Julie, but it was still relatively a small project. According to that same interview with Inspired Insider, for the first 3 years of Baby Einstein, they fully worked out of their basement, the same basement where the first tape was filmed, and only had 4 employees, as well as some people they contracted with, like the music composer and a video editor. Eventually, they did move to a small office space, but still only had up to 5 employees. This was roughly around the 5th year of Baby Einstein, and even still on such a small scale with 5 employees, they made $20 million in sales that year. However, it was when that 5th year was approaching that this realization came of to maintain the growth of this business, we need to hire more people and expand. But the reason they held off for so long was because the whole process behind a passion project like this is really fun. Working with people you know and love on a smaller scale is fun. But when something becomes like a money machine like Baby Einstein was at the time, that aspect of it unfortunately goes away. And this was something Julie knew as it started to get bigger. You could just hire more people, yes, but deep down Julie knew the products weren't going to mean as much to her if the behind the scenes process was, sped up on a larger scale. So that's when the difficult decision was made by her and her husband to sell the company to Disney in 2000. Disney was chosen due to their involvement already with the, licensing for the books. So Julie was pretty certain they would be interested, and well, she was right, they were interested. Therefore, Disney would take ownership of Baby Einstein starting in 2001. According to the Walt Disney Company website, here is what the future of Baby Einstein had in store. The Baby Einstein Company, founded in 1996, develops and sells products that expose babies to various forms of human expression, language, poetry, music, art, and science, through ways that are nurturing and fun. The acquisition of Baby Einstein provides the Walt Disney Company with another high-quality brand franchise which serves as one of our core customer segments, families with small children. We are particularly excited about extending from the Baby series brand into a little series that will also appeal to preschoolers. We view this acquisition as a core element of our company-wide learning initiative for children. The Little product line is scheduled to launch in late 2002. Baby Einstein's founder, Julie Clark, mother of two, who formerly taught English and art, and her husband, William Clark, will serve as consultants to Disney. Baby Einstein broke new ground in coming to market with stimulating media products for baby and the toddler crowd. And our success has been tremendous. We're thrilled to be putting our grassroots brand into the hands of the Walt Disney Company and watch our baby grow up. The Baby Einstein Company and its products have won numerous awards from major family and retail magazines, from educational foundations. Awards include the prestigious Video Magic Award presented annually by Parenting Magazine and the Video of the Year Award from Child Magazine. The firm's newest video titles, Neighborhood Animals and World Animals, are winners of Parenting Magazine's Best Videos of 2001, and join other favorites such as the Baby Einstein, Baby Mozart, Baby Van Gogh, and Baby Shakespeare videos. Now, obviously we know Baby Einstein received a lot of praise from parents and educators alike over the years. It was very unique in the market at the time. But with anything popular, and partially because it was targeted at such a young demographic, came some controversy too. I know, the things you wouldn't expect to be controversial are very controversial in fact. It was actually once Disney took on more of this prominent role with Baby Einstein and had ownership that people began to question if it truly had any educational value for babies. And even worse, was Baby Einstein possibly to blame for stunted language development? According to an article by Time, a study was done at the University of Washington on both Baby Einstein and Brainy Babies, which I'd never heard of. But this study claimed that for every hour per day spent watching baby DVDs and videos, infants learned 6 to 8 fewer new vocabulary words than babies who never watched the videos. These products had the strongest detrimental effect on babies 8 to 16 months old, the age which language skills are starting to form. The more videos they watched, the fewer words they knew. These babies scored about 10% lower on language skills than infants who had not watched these videos. The only thing the baby videos are doing is producing a new generation of overstimulated kids. There is an assumption that stimulation is good, so more is better, he says, but that's not true. There is such thing as overstimulation. His group has found that the more television children watch, the shorter their attention spans are later in life. Their minds come to expect a high level of stimulation and view that as normal, and by comparison, reality is boring. Now let me just say, I'm not an expert. I don't have kids, I don't particularly want kids, and I was actually the target demographic of Baby Einstein, born in 2005. Point is, my knowledge was just very vague memories of clips that I watched and the logo. I never really knew about this entire controversy, so it was very interesting to learn about. But what's interesting about it is how in this article they make Baby Baby Einstein out to be this kind of like brain rot of the 2000s, when the whole point of Julie starting Baby Einstein in the first place was wanting her own daughter to not be exposed to TV at a young age, because it does more harm than good. This is an issue that, as time has gone on and technology has advanced, it has only gotten worse. You don't need to be a parent to know that you can't just sit your child in front of a screen for hours at a time. You can't just hand them an iPad mini because it benefits you as a parent. It's simply not healthy. And so after learning all about Julie and watching her TED Talk and all of the humble beginnings behind Baby Einstein, reading this was just so bizarre. I never got the impression that Baby Einstein was meant to be something super highly educational for babies, although there definitely are educational aspects and elements, no doubt. I just think it was more of like an enjoyable sensory experience, if anything, for babies. Obviously, because I was so young, I ended up, asking my mom about Baby Einstein and talking to her about it. And let me tell you, this was exactly the way she described it to me too. She never had me watching Baby Einstein because it was gonna make me into some prodigy. It was for, an enjoyable sensory experience for her baby. Speaking of parents though, I'm not a parent, so I'd love to know and hear your perspectives in the comments on this. I say parents because I have a handful of viewers that watch my content, because I talk about things that their kids were into at one point in time. So I'm just very curious about more parents' perspective on this issue, because my mom knew nothing about the controversy personally, was just as shocked as I was to learn about it. And we'll get into this in a minute, but there were refunds issued, and that's why I went to ask her in the first place, because I was curious if she had, gotten any refund. But let me not jump too ahead here. Even though Disney had ownership over Baby Einstein at this point, Julie still received a ton of backlash, to the point that she was targeted in real life, according to an NBC article titled "Creator of Baby Einstein Backs the Videos." Julie Clark sold her company to Walt Disney Company 5 years ago, but the suburban Denver mother of two has been personally targeted by criticism after a University of Washington study suggested baby videos may hinder infants' vocabulary development. She woke up to find the mailbox outside her home vandalized with the words "dumb baby" spray painted on it after she did television interviews about the study. She also received emails from angry and concerned parents who bought the videos for their children. In an interview, she said that she stands behind the videos and that they were never designed to make children smarter. The point, she said, is to make them happier by exposing them to beautiful things like art, music, and poetry. Along the way, she thinks babies who watch the videos with their parents will probably learn things about words and numbers as their parents talk to them about what they see, just as they do from reading a book with them. I believe we've done what we've always set out to do, expose kids to great things, and when used the right way by interacting with a parent or a guardian, there are positive ways to engage with your child, said Clark, who has returned to work as an English teacher. The university survey, published in the Journal of Pediatrics, found that watching an hour of baby videos a day was associated with a 17-point decrease on a language assessment test in children 8 to 16 months. It said that meant those children knew about 6 to 8 fewer words out of a list of 90 other children that age, but the researchers acknowledged they couldn't say for sure what was causing those decreased scores without a further study, and they found no difference in scores for toddlers 17 to 24 months who watched videos or television. Now, when this study was first released to the public, Disney did reach out to them, complaining, hoping that the University of Washington would back down and retract their claims. However, that was not the case. That's not what happened. They stood their ground. You can find the letter that was written by their president online. So nearly 3 years later, in 2010, Julie's husband, the co-founder, aka William Clark, took them to court, specifically asking the judge to order that the University of Washington release the records of the two studies they did linking TV viewing by young children to attention span problems and delayed language development. All we're asking for is the basis for what the university has represented to be the groundbreaking research, the co-founder William Clark said in a statement Monday. Given that the other research studies have not found the same outcomes, we would like the raw data and analytical methods from the Washington study so that we can audit their methodology and perhaps duplicate the studies to see if the outcomes are the same. In their news release and email messages to reporters, the Clarks said they went to court to protect their legacy. "I'm proud of what I made," said Miss Clark in an email message on Monday night. "Welcome to the 21st century. Most people have televisions in their houses and most babies are exposed to it. And most people would agree that a child is better off listening to Beethoven while watching images of a puppet than seeing any reality show that I can think of." And mind you, at this point the Clarks didn't have any financial stake in the company, and Disney had ownership, so they could have easily ignored these claims, but they felt it was so important to get to the bottom of things once and for all. Because again, this was her legacy. She built this from the beginning and she was very proud of it. Ultimately though, due to this study initially going very viral, Disney did offer refunds for anyone who bought the videos from 2004 to 2009, which ended up costing them an estimated $100 million. They didn't immediately offer refunds. At first they just dropped the word educational from the marketing of Baby Einstein, which I think is fair, but also it does have some educational value, like I won't lie. And that was the main issue that parents originally had, was, you know, the whole educational part. But that was not enough for these parents. They were very upset, so Disney ended up having to offer refunds. As for the 4-year-long battle with the University of Washington, things were settled in 2011, and the founders, aka Julie and William, they were given $175,000 plus the raw data from both the 2004 and 2007 studies. Yeah, there were 2 studies. I don't think I mentioned that, but most of the information I found online was from the 2007 study, and I think that's the one that like really took off and went viral. When I was learning about this whole like lawsuit and everything and the study, something else that caught my eye too was apparently the lead researcher for this study attempted to destroy records of a telephone survey with more than 1,000 parents sometime in 2008, but luckily a backup copy was found. Still, even trying to do that like easily broke the University of Washington's policy. Also, upon getting the data, the Clarks noticed discrepancies in critical areas of the database, but the University of Washington's lawyers explained this by blaming software or hardware glitches in the process of converting the massive electronic database to a printable format. But yeah, that's all I have to talk about today pretty much. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I explained like the court stuff okay, it wasn't too confusing. To be fair, I'm not a professional, I'm not too familiar with like how all that stuff works. And I even found myself getting confused when I was like reading the articles on this. I'm like, okay, am I understanding correctly? My worst fear is always like that I explain something wrong and then people in the comments are gonna be like, no, you misunderstood that. As always, a big shout out to my Patreon members. I appreciate you guys so much. My bonus video for April was a commentary video about Barbie Fairytopia, which was a lot of fun. I want to start making it my goal to do more movie reviews on there at least once a month as like bonus content for you guys, since it's a little difficult to review a movie on YouTube because of copyright issues to worry about, and like obviously with Patreon, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed this video though. At the end of May, I'll be talking about PBS Kids, and I'm so excited for that video. If you're looking for updates on that at any point, you can always go to my community tab. Anyway, I will see you guys in my very next video.